So if anyone who's been playing this game since launch or put in an ungodly amount of hours into it, it's pretty obvious that there is a glaring issue. The player count, it's been slipping. Bigger channels like Blue, Minplex, and Solgrad, they've already covered the issues that they face in this game, but I'm here to give mine. From the perspective of a casual player with a small guild. Now, for a game like this, videos like this shouldn't have to be made, but they are. And the issues are actually pretty predictable and preventable. But before I move forward, one thing I really do enjoy, not really about the gameplay or the game itself, it's the devs. They actually listen to the players, to us, and consider what the players think. So if this video resonates with you, if you like the suggestions that I make, please give it a like and share so we can make sure that the devs actually see this video. They understand that these are changes that could happen or the players want to happen, and then they could try to implement them into the game. Now, the way I'm going to format this is in a problem versus solution framework, and then offer some of my own add-ins periodically. So the first glaring issue that I face, and a lot of other players absolutely hate, is pretty clear. It's the time-gated content. Like, when there's other things to do, when you have a plethora of other things to do that don't require that time gate, this makes sense. But this early in the game, when we are still in early builds of the game, it doesn't make sense. Like, I get it. You want to make sure it's there so when the other stuff comes in, you're not throwing that, you're not slamming that on players. It makes sense. But this kind of moves into number two. If we're going to have time-gated content with not much else to do in the world, give us more energy and more stamina to do what we want to do. A lot of players, they want to grind out. They want to min-max. So allow us to do that. Because generally speaking, a lot of players can run through that minimal amount of energy pretty quickly. Especially with the fact that we really don't have to fight campaign bosses anymore. They decide to take breaks and we can just kneel and boom, the match is over. It's over in like 15 seconds. I run through my full 550 energy in a matter of 10 minutes. And then after that, it's not really much to do. Yeah, sure, I could build in my guild, but I run a small guild. We don't gain funds that quickly. So I can build a building and then I have to stop for a week or two before I can build something else. Sure, I could gather and build my home, but again, that's tedious. That's not something I want to do all day. I could do events, sure, but the events are, again, time-gated, like the Howling Lion. I went ahead and knocked out everything I could from phase 1 to phase 3 in 30 minutes. Now what? It's not much to do for me at that point. Another thing that can kind of go into 1 and 2, and this is more of a solution rather than a problem, is life skilling. BDO did this extremely well. This doesn't necessarily have to be tied to energy or stamina. Give us auto fishing. Allow us to grab a logging axe and go chop down trees and build up logging skills, build up crafting skills. Allow us to build up skills that create a bigger time sink into the game and reward us for it. And this goes into my next thing. The rewards are absolutely crap. I'm just gonna lay it out plainly. They're shit. With the premium gachas, the regular gachas, why am I gonna sit here and roll a lingering melody and most of the time I get dyes I'm probably never gonna use, specifically the hair dyes? I'm getting fireworks. What the hell am I gonna do with fireworks? Seriously, what am I gonna do with fireworks? And I'm constantly getting things that I never see myself using. Ever. In fact, I did use the fireworks once, and it was at a guild member's birthday party. I stuck one on my head, and that was probably the only one I used. most of the rewards in the gachas are useless for most players. Even if we look at the jade dish that we get, the jade currency, outside of purchasing resonating melodies or lingering melodies every week, what use is there? I mean, sure, you can save up and you could purchase your initial books to unlock specific inner ways, but then after that, there's nothing there. I understand we're supposed to get jade gachas in the future, so it might give us a reason to save up, but again, we haven't seen that hit global yet. So at this point, what's the point of it? And we haven't seen any announcement of it yet. Another issue that I find in this game is there's no real crafting, at least in terms of gear. We should be allowed to craft our own gear outside of just bows and rings. This could tie into the life skilling element. The better your forging skills, the better your fletching skills, the better your armor, your bows, your rings, your accessories could be. Another issue I have with this game is there's not enough fashion options. Now, before people jump down my throat about the cosmetics, hear me out. Yes, a lot of the base cosmetics are absolutely beautiful. They are. But one of the things I cover a lot in this game is the fashion element. And there is a lot to be desired here. One, most outfits don't have tailoring options, and if they do, they're minimal. And I mean minimal. I did a video on Scorpion's Heart, and the tailoring option for the chest piece was removing the chin guard. That was it. That was it. No broken armor, no different armor pattern, nothing. Just removing the chin guard. Only to give us a chin guard as an accessory. That makes sense if you want to add it to another outfit, sure. But other than that, what's the point? Seriously. What's the point? We need more tailoring options in our outfits. The most recent outfit that was released, it did a really good job with this. It was an exclusive outfit just to global, which I was completely surprised by. I got a video on that one coming out pretty soon. From the male version, went from a topless look to give us a whole jacket. I was so taken aback by that. Like, that was incredible. That's the type of tailoring options that I'm talking about. The women's version went from a sleeveless top, like a cut-off tank top, and gave them sleeves. Those are the kind of tailoring options we need with our outfits. Something that stands out, something that actually makes it look different and noticeable. Other than that, the tailoring options are a waste of jade fishies. They really are. Another issue kind of revolving around the fashion here is dyeing. You can dye the main outfit, great, but you can't dye accessories. You can't dye weapons. Why? That doesn't make sense. Why would you give us a bunch of accessories with an outfit, allow us to change the outfit color, but then we can't match the accessories with it?
Yeah.
Can someone explain that to me? Please. And I see that as something that is a major oversight. Now this next one, it's more of a suggestion rather than a problem with the fix. And that's status effects. Now this mainly focuses on the drunkenness status. Since we have Raging Tides, it kind of became more apparent to me that when you're drunk, you're locked out of actions. Again, why? Like, I understand, not being able to fight to a certain degree, but I can't jump. I can't interact with certain stuff because I don't have the quote-unquote power. Things like drunkenness shouldn't lock you out of certain actions. What should be done with something like that, in my own opinion, is that we should get a distortion on the screen to simulate that drunkenness. Our character staggers, XYZ, but we should not be locked out of combat whatsoever. In fact, we should get a strength and defense buff like you would normally get if you're actually drunk. Yes, you're not as coordinated, but you hit harder and you don't get hurt as easily. That would make sense, right? And personally, I don't know where a bunch of my other lovely Raging Tides members likes to get drunk. Personally, I do mine in the guild, which kind of takes me to the next point. Guild content is so lackluster and dry, it's unbelievable. It really is. It gets so repetitive after a while that it just feels like a checklist. Me and the active members that I have, a lot of times we just make sure we get on to complete our guild tasks to make sure our guild doesn't go down. We spend our energy and then we're off until our energy gets back up. But that's pretty much it right now. We're current in game. There's not much else to do. So I have a few suggestions that could really ramp up guild content here. A, add NPC invasions. This is where NPCs can raid your guild, take supplies, and the difficulty of the raid would scale based on the amount of players currently online. Not based on the players that are in your guild, but the players that are online. Because a lot of guilds have inactive members, and if it's based on the amount of members in your guild, active players can get easily overwhelmed and discouraged from the content. And another thing would be guild crafting, farming, and trading between allied guilds. This harpers back into my other suggestion of the life skilling. Each guild member has a crafting level. They can craft, they can farm, they can do other things inside the guild itself. This will give supplies and resources to the guild, and then they can take a small portion for themselves. This will allow them to farm things like herbs, rare materials, etc., etc. These can then be used for crafting items, for either guild wars, for the invasions, or just to trade with other guilds for specific resources. And I'm pretty sure this can be easily implemented, as the Chinese version already has a farming mechanic. We could just place it in the guilds. I'm pretty sure it will be easy to add an ally function where you could partner with your friends who have other guilds and you guys can work together. And we already technically have trading. It's just not our traditional we can trade gear and materials, but you can gift players items for events and receive them. That's trading. So I don't see why something like that couldn't be implemented in a guild format. Another thing that I have, and this is more of an issue rather than anything, is allowing guilds to scale back upgrades. And I say this because as a new player into the game, when it launched, I created my own guild. And if a lot of other people make the same mistake I did and they scale up too fast and they don't have enough members to compensate, they will die. Period. So to prevent that from happening and allow players to engage more with guild content, if they scale up too quickly, allow them to scale back. And just give it and then just make it so that there's a cooldown before you can scale up again. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. But just allow them to scale back to say, oh snap, I made a mistake. Let me pull that back. Because one issue I had was I didn't want to scale up the guild because I knew we were small and I didn't want to put stress on my guild members. And I didn't realize the limitations of certain roles. And one of my admins upgraded the guild. So then I had to scale back other stuff, other builds, to make sure we had the funds to keep going. Obviously, we made it happen, but other people might not be so lucky. And this next one is something that can be added as an event, as a guild event. And that would be guild versus NPCs open battlefield content. And this could be where guilds can gather their players together and participate in a warlike open battlefield against NPCs. And they could do this to ultimately defeat a NPC commander. So in this mode, guilds can actually utilize the area behind the arena, which for some reason we can't build in anyway, to train NPC soldiers, to train a garrison of soldiers that would participate in that open warlike scenario, that open battlefield scenario. And we can build up those NPCs. We could train them using the materials we farm. Personally, I would love something like that. And just like the invasions, the battlefield will scale based on the amount of participating players. And another way this could go is an actual guild war, not necessarily like the one that we have, but an open battlefield scenario where one guild takes 10 members, another guild takes 10 members, and each member controls their own battalion of soldiers, be it archers, spearmen, horseback, whatever. And it's an open battlefield situation. Hell, it doesn't even have to be open battlefield. It could be in Kaifeng. It could be in Heshi. It could be anywhere specifically in the game, but it's a battlefield. I think that would be a great addition to guild content. Another thing would be mercenaries. Another thing BDO did very well. They allowed people in one guild to quote unquote merc out and go help out another guild with their content. Be it Node Wars, GVG, whatever. This, I feel, could be pretty easily to implement along with the guild ally system. Now, coming a little bit back out of guilds, going back in, and jumping back into life skills, give us a survival style crafting mechanic. I feel like Myth of Empires did this very well, along with other survival style games. Say if you wanted to make a sword, you wanted to craft a sword, you had to go get the materials, you had to craft refined materials based on those, and then you would have to craft the item itself, either using one material or multiple materials, and each material had its own timer on how long it took to craft. This would dramatically increase our gameplay loop and really allow us to dive into the game itself. And this is one thing I've spoken to a lot of my friends about who play this game, is one of the things I feel like it's missing more than everything is an immersive crafting mechanic. I feel like the game immediately would be 10 times better if we had that. One of the biggest issues though with this game that I really didn't notice until Liangzhou was these long-winded quest lines. Oh my god. When we did the desert region of Heshi, the burlap sack, I was about to say bearded Guang, the burlap sack quest was bearable. You know, it had the right amount of getting the player in the eyes of burlap sack and then switching us back to our own player and back and forth, back and forth. It was the perfect balance of that. But once we got into Liangzhou, I got the most serious case of whiplash I ever had. It was ridiculous. The Paper Moon quest was okay. It wasn't that bad. The Musician's quest was not that bad. It was, how can I say, it was a little worse, but it wasn't that bad. But the quest at the Governor's Manor was absolutely unbearable. There is no reason why I have to sit on 3 times speed for an hour on a quest. And that's if I make the right multi-choice decisions. If I make the wrong one, guess what? It's going to play through a sequence and then it's going to take me back and then I have to try again. If I make it wrong, it's going to take me back and I have to try again after going through another sequence. And that was probably the most annoying and that was probably the most irritating experience I've ever had in any game. It was terrible. I had multiple members of my guild who were ready to quit the game because of it. And the reward for that was the ability to use an interway. And our standard Jadefish, a couple interways, some money, experience, blah, blah, blah. For something that unbearable and those rewards for it felt like a slap in the face. It really did. If you're going to have quests like that, you should not have these long-winded sequences and then take us into a situation where we practically have to crawl to the next checkpoint to continue it. No. Absolutely not. If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna have quests like that, just make it one long cutscene. Save us the pain and make it one long cutscene. Say, hey, grab some popcorn. You'll be here a while. Enjoy the movie. And devs, if you're watching this, I guarantee you players will appreciate that a whole lot more. Now, cutting back into the open world, another issue that I have is the mobs. Mobs feel few and far between. And when you do run into them, they're like 5 enemies. What? No. No. The mob should be bigger and more frequent. With better loot. Please, better loot. I have zero inclination to fight these mobs. And the only place you see a large concentration of enemies is in outposts. Which does make sense. Just make them denser. I have zero inclination to go out and hunt mobs unless I'm bored. Zero. Or short on a specific type of upgrade material. And even then, I don't need that many of them because our weapons are time gated. So right now, it feels like farming mobs is pointless. And another thing that can be added into bigger and more frequent mobs is wandering semi-bosses and NPCs that hunt the player. Like, bounty or no bounty, there should be some sort of wandering NPCs that are actively recognizing or hunting the player's character. And on the flip side, there should be strong enemies walking around the open world that you could just hunt or challenge for like really, really big rewards. And I'm not talking about just some jade discs or health potions or, you know, minuscule upgrade materials, but something actually tangible that make it worth doing. You know what I'm saying? We kill a wandering boss and, I don't know, we get a relic that we could turn into a cosmetic for our weapon. You know, or we drop one of we drop one of the bosses, one of the wandering bosses, and we get a specific outfit from it. We get their outfit. It could be, you know, stuff like that. Stuff that makes it feel worth hunting these bosses down. Now I'm going to pull back from the open world for a bit. And I'm going to go into the character creator. As beautiful as the character creator is, I love it. I freaking love it. But it needs some tweaks. We need body sliders. I remember Blue did a video about how he went to China and the devs were just pretty adamant about not having body sliders. But we need body sliders. We need to be able to adjust our height. You know, all the characters, all the male characters are the same height as all the other male characters. All the other female characters are the same height as all the other female characters. There's really no height or even weight diversity. All of the characters based on gender are the same size. But the main reason I have an issue with no body sliders is the fact that some outfits make my character look extremely thin and frail. And I don't like that. I don't wear the outfits because of that. But if we had a body slider, I could bulk my character up a little bit just to fill that in. Personally, I feel that would allow them to sell outfits a lot more. You know, you don't need specific sliders like a butt slider or a chest slider. But, you know, allow us to adjust our height, adjust our muscularity, adjust our muscle denseness. You know, maybe, you know, a little bit of a thigh slider. You know, just a little bit. Because, you know, Gooner's gonna goon. And another thing like we added here is tattoos. I don't know why we don't have body tattoos. We have face markings. Why not body tattoos? We have outfits that give them to us. So why can't we put tattoos on ourselves? Clearly tattoos aren't an issue. So allow us to put tattoos on our actual physical body. So that way if we want, as a male character, if I want my guy to go around shirtless, you know, with ink on his body, I can. This next one dives in more into a quality life aspect, and that is the black market. For the love of God, give us the black market. I don't know why it hasn't been implemented yet. But for the love of God, give us the black market. Please. Please. And the next issue I have deals with stats and how they're distributed. You know, the fact that proficiency, crit rate, and affinity rate are random rolls doesn't make sense to me. Now, my solution for this, specifically with proficiency and affinity, to tie them to how frequently a player uses a specific set, a specific build. For instance, the longer you use a specific style or gear set, the more proficiency, affinity, or crit points you get that do not count towards the max amount you can get. The fact that your proficiency, crit, and affinity are random is dumb to me. So my idea is completely based on build types. Say if your build is Bellstrike Umbra. After you've used it for X amount of battles, triggered effects X amount of times, or got hit X amount of times, you get permanent stat buffs completely unique to that individual gear set, mixes, skills, interways, weapon styles, whatever. But if you change them out, you lose the benefit of that particular piece of the build. This alone will give players a lot more to grind for, as well as that extra edge in combat. And for those who plan to become proficient in many different combat styles over however long they play, this will give them something rewarding to look forward towards. To add on to that, the weapon type you use has its own permanent stat buffs after a prolonged use. For instance, if you use the Stone Split Tank build, you get strength and defense buffs. Bamboo Cut, the dual blades and rope dart, it gains crit and agility buffs. And since weapons and builds can be mixed and matched however you want, this should be based again off of the specific style used tied to your weapon. So each one will get points at a certain rate. If you use both in that set, your points move 50% faster. But if, say, you're using a strat twin blade build, you gain those points at a normal rate. Now, the reason I say permanent is that if you use heavy weapons for an extended period of time and you gain a strength and defense buff, it doesn't make sense that you suddenly lose those buffs and get weaker after using a lighter weapon. A key example for this was Dragon's Dogma. I would often use a heavier, tankier build starting the game off just to build my strength and defense, and then switch to a mage build to build up my magic attack and magic defense. And I would do this repeatedly among other builds until I landed on my favorite build, which was the assassin build. So that way you can gain all of the strengths of each build while decreasing the weaknesses of each build. You become far more balanced. Now, maxing out your use on each weapon will also gain unique titles in itself, specifically tied to those builds, those weapons, whatever. And this points to my next issue: temporary titles. Why are there temporary titles? Instead of temporary titles, just stack the titles. They already do this with Abyss Conqueror. If I want my best of the best title, and I know I'm going to lose it at the end of the season, and I got to grind for that title all again, it feels redundant. It feels pointless. It feels like busy work I don't want to do. Just allow the titles to stack. Best of the best 1, 2, 3, 20, whatever. Allow them to stack. Change the rewards out each season, because there's no reason why we've had 3 seasons already. We're in our 3rd season, and it's the same rewards each season for PvP. Why are we constantly getting the monkey mask each season? If you're gonna keep specific rewards like that, then your first season getting to X amount of points, monkey mask. Your second season getting to X amount of points, sword cosmetic. Your 3rd season getting to X amount of points, something else, and so on and so forth. Each season should have its own cosmetic tied to it, or tied to the amount of seasons you reach a specific set of points. So in short, temporary titles should be getting rid of completely. Throw that in the trash bin right now. Now moving on to more co-op PvE content. One thing I would really love to see added to this game is a new raid mode. It should be more MMO-like. Instead of directly just dropping into the boss's den, allow us to fight waves in a dungeon. You know, 5-10 players have to run through caves or run through a base or whatever, fighting waves of enemies, having to complete puzzles only to fight the boss in the end. Allow us to create strategies to beat these things rather than just having mechanics of the boss. Hidden chests. If they're trying to complete a puzzle and somebody sees a little alcove in a corner, runs over and opens the chest, the entire group gets that reward from that chest. That would make these hero realms, these sword trials, if they're added into there, even more engaging. Or again, just make it its own mode called a dungeon runner mode or something. I don't know. But that definitely needs to be added into here. Hell, that could even be added into the guild mode. They could take their own NPCs that they've trained up and run these dungeons, or they could do it as players in the guild, as a quote unquote invasion. An invasion mode. That's what it could be called. An invasion mode, where you invade a boss's territory, like say the Dao Lord, right? We have to fight through that entire sewer system of Kai Feng to get to the boss, to get to the Dao Lord. So, if you agree with my points, please let me know. If you think something could be different, let me know. These are just the issues I've had with the game and some ideas I could fix them, some ideas to make the game better, to bring player counts in. If you have something else to add, please add it in the comment below. If you feel like something can be improved, please add it in the comment below. I would love to hear what everybody has to say. So until next time, guys, please like the video. I feel like the devs really need to see this. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.